This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, GMR Entertainment, WJ England & Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport. It is the most single underrated category ever. It's so good when you get racing like this, when you get a car like this, when you get so much action out of an open formula. Most people think about the formula category going through Formula 1 to Formula 2 to Formula 3, but they do forget one thing, and that is the Super Formula. So good they had to call it Super, because it is. And that's where we find ourselves today, with some brilliant challenges. Once again, the third of four that we are having today, brought to you by World Pro Racing. We are at Spielberg for the Red Bull Ring and this brilliant challenge coming up upon the horizon. My name's Jake Sperry, that's Nicholas Hillebrand alongside me right now, and we are, of course, live on World Pro Racing's YouTube, Facebook Live, and on Twitch. We are live, of course, on ESTV. We are live on motorsport.tv. And we are live on TVM Sport as well. But Nicholas, this is a high-speed track, all about acceleration and braking, and you've got a car with push-to-pass enabled within it. This is going to be an overtake central if we have a close front field.
Well, most definitely. It's going to be quite an interesting race. These cars, of course, almost like the GT500 cars in Super GT, they have a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine turbocharged, which produces almost 600 horsepower, if you can believe the figures that Toyota and Honda put out. So with an overall weight of 660 kilograms, that's quite a lot of power to put down on the road. And as you said, push to pass as well. I think, especially with a track like Spielberg, where we already have a slipstream fest to be guaranteed, I think this is going to be a very interesting race today.
Absolutely, and we're going to be finding out who is the master of a open formula category vehicle. We've seen over the first two events, it has been one driver and one driver only ahead. Everybody else, that has been Windy winning the challenge with the Nissan, and then the challenge with the Lamborghini. So it looks like we've got a completely different philosophy of what's happening this week, but it's worth talking about what's coming up on the horizon. No racing next week here for you, ladies and gentlemen, but the week after, we do have that availability for you. And of course, that comes along in the Beat Mount Panorama Challenge, which is going to be absolutely magnificent. And you are going to want to check that out across anywhere that you can. So if you have not already, please like, please share, please subscribe. Please mark in your diary 2 weeks from today, because you'll have that Mount Panorama Challenge very swiftly on the horizon. But from one horizon to another, from one hilly circuit to another, let's talk about this Red Bull Ring for a little bit here, Nicholas, because you look at a track like this, and on paper, it is stop-start. It is very much all about trying to get down the inside and making a move. But there are a lot of intricacies that come around this place, mainly that mid to late sector where you have to deal with high-speed cornering.
Yes, and it's always going to be that fight, a lot of people go for low downforce here, but in that mid sector, you really need every bit of downforce that you can get. It's only 8 corners, so compared to most other tracks, for example, Spa that we had, and, well, like just basically any other track around, you have basically double the amount of corners, but these corners that we have here, they have it in it, because Ramos already, turn 2, very famous, that happened after the long way up the mountain, and after that, it just all goes downhill from there. There's not just one line for that. You said it's with the typical down the inside move. It's of course a safe move to do, but at Ramos, just because of how the track goes there, with a little bit off camber, a little bit on the apex as it goes just a bit over the crest, you can make a very nice move around the outside there. And we've seen that so much in recent years of racing as well. And just generally, This circuit is just completely unique. It's still one of these very original racing circuits, even though having some of the gravel traps replaced with tarmac runoffs. But just like Spa-Francorchamps, this is still one of these absolute classics in racing worldwide.
Absolutely. It has gone through a couple of iterations over the years. Formerly the Österreich ring, it was a lot more open, a lot more expansive, narrowed and shortened down for the A1 ring as it was back in the late 90s, early 2000s, before a little absence off the calendar, Red Bull coming in, creating it to be the Red Bull ring, and now we find ourselves with racing absolutely wonderful here. And in terms of the little bits of history that this track has made, you don't often get too many circuits where you have multiple overtaking opportunities back to back. Very rare that you can see 4 or 5 places to make a move out on circuit. This is one of the few places that manages to make that happen. More importantly than that, Nicholas, it's the first circuit that's ever held 2 Formula One events at the same track at the same season. So what you certainly get to see is that this track has a brilliant ability to host all kinds of racing action around here. But when it comes to Formula racing, it really does put an absolutely massive emphasis on everybody trying to get as much as they can out of this place, especially as we are just a handful of minutes away from stepping up and going over towards practice.
Yes, definitely. As we, know after already discussing with the corner mount, but just overall in general, this track is a bit shorter. So lap-wise, it's one of the longer races on the calendar in Formula One. And so a lap is actually quite close to 1 minute here. Not quite a minute, but still pretty fast. And the average speed, because of all these medium and high-speed corners that you have, I mean, pretty much after turn 3, you basically only slow down for around third, maybe fourth gear, and still stay on the throttle at such high cornering speeds. I think last year I went there for the ADAC GT Masters, and even in GT3 cars, they pull up to 3 or 4 Gs going through the Red Bull Mobile corner, like the last corner there, just because of the pure G forces, the pure speeds, and the drop off in the road that you get there. So it's just constant stress on the car, constant stress on the tires, and through all of that, it's still wide enough to race and overtake everywhere. So it's going to be very interesting.
Absolutely, and it's going to be interesting in terms of how long this format is going to be here today. It's a 20-lap race that we have available to showcase for you right now. But before we get to that, it's 15 minutes of practice, it's 15 minutes of qualifying, and you've got a track which is so high speed and gives you so many opportunities to go out there and overtake. We don't really talk about the ramifications that will come along with qualifying around this place, Nicholas, because this is going to be a case of drivers making sure that they've got a little bit of clean air to work with, but there's that trade-off of having that slipstream and dash that toe when you're going down very long straights around this place. You really want to be getting that run because you could be easily saving first 2 sectors, 3/10, 4/10, half a second maybe in terms of time just by having draft earlier on.
Yeah, definitely. And especially because of these long straights. Already, they have the front straight. You have then the straight from turn 1 to turn 2, and then from turn 2 to turn 3, which also goes downhill. So, as you say, you can easily save half a second or maybe even more there. But then this way through turn 4, 5, 6, you really need all of the downforce you can get there. And even in the high braking zones, down to turn 3, you're just really better off, not being in someone's dirty air there, because you need to put every bit of power that you have from the air pressing you down onto those tires so that they can grip properly under brakes, because these are just forces beyond human understanding.
Absolutely. And let's talk about brakes ever so quickly. We've got a couple of minutes before, or we've got a minute before we head over to practice. Let's talk turn 1 for a moment here, because that's a corner which I think goes down as one of the toughest corners on this circuit, not from the sense of it's a challenge in terms of how quick you need to take it. It's not necessarily because it's a challenge of how many Gs you put through the vehicle. I think it's just a challenge because you go uphill into a braking zone, and then you have to realize you've got an Armco barrier there on the front. You've got a very high banked ceiling, some would say, on the left-hand side, which makes life really tough, and it almost feels like you're being pushed through a corridor, especially when we've got the starts that we do here, Nicholas. How difficult is turn 1 going to be as we start the event?
Yeah, I think turn 1 is pretty much, you have a lot of pressure going into it. Of course, you don't win the race in the first corner, but you really want to just get that run perfectly right. You can do it with two people together easily, especially since these cars are quite a bit, just smaller than Formula One cars. So you can fit them more easily, like next to each other. But either way, you have this very long straight, which also goes very steeply uphill. And you just want to carry all bit of momentum through there. It is a slow corner, as we now go there with Kyokuro Sentai, actually, who's finally come back to our attention here. But yeah, like as I said, you have to get it just ever so slightly right, just to get the maximum amount of momentum up this entire hill. You see here now is on the brakes, and up to that point, you can really lose a lot of time simply by messing up the first corner.
Absolutely you can, as drivers look to try and make sure they get themselves as ready as possible here as they jam on the brakes through this section, I think is the right way to say it, into that turn 4 corner, and now you start really ratcheting it up back through the right. Now you can see where all the G-force comes in, just a flick down into 4th gear. Still 160 k's here in these Super Formula vehicles and getting on through, and here's something very interesting that you're going to be finding as they all look to put the power down, and that is the button next to the fuel, or the bar that you can see right now next to the fuel as they go down on the power, looking to go through. That's a little bit of turbo, and that's a little bit of pitting that we're seeing right now. Look how aggressive you can be into that pit lane. It's very seldom that you see it here, Nicholas, that you've got a lot of time to work with going over to the pit. So we've got drivers up and down the order who want to try and get themselves up and high up in the standing, so to speak. Hondism haven't seen any of Hondism so far over all of the events that we have seen so far, and we'll be looking to try and get there as quickly as possible to get as much of a good result. It is so easy just to come in sometimes when you haven't had many runs and just try and shake up a couple of things here and there, and that's going to be the key in the Honda there, part of the Dallara chassis that is run here and is part of what is a brilliant capability around this circuit to just have a very, very cool looking car.
Most definitely, and as we were describing this fantastic car here, Kyokuro has actually been sort of thrown off of his throne there. He was quite a bit ahead of Mikhail and Hondism there. Actually, Mikhail just went quite a bit faster as well, only 2/10 behind Kyokuro now. And Jaku now sits up on the throne, on top, and yeah, I think if it's looking like this, with Ivan also very close behind, just 0.03 of a second behind Mikhail right now, we have seen quite some racing in the last couple of races, and I think a high power, low weight formula car like this, so we have basically the same power as in the Group 3 cars, but half of the weight. I think we can look forward to a very, very good race here.
And what's also going to be key here is that it does have so much power, but because of how light it is, it's all about that power per ton that everyone likes to talk about. That weight is so key, being only 600 kilograms. You're talking about how much you can get per torque, and just so much you can pack into it. That's probably by mass somewhere near 1,000 that we're looking at, and it's not very often that you get to see a number up there around 1,000. So I think we're going to be seeing some very, very quick lap times around here today, and that certainly does look like it is going to be the case. 1:13, the call of order for a lot of drivers right now. Ivan having a good run here today as well, looking to try and make some progress with some times here in practice, and that's going to be worth just keeping in mind the longer that things go on. This seems to be pretty popular with everyone going on. We've got a number of drivers here today looking to get some good results. Shalinu here is in 6th place right now in the very nice, I would say, turquoise and black car at the moment, trying to make some good progress here through the middle sector of the lap and try and get on forward as much as possible. But it is worth keeping an eye out about this circuit because there are so many marbles that are going to be coming off in that middle sector, and that's only going to make grip levels worse.
Yeah, most definitely, and especially with these Formula cars, the least you want is that you get the tires dirty. But yeah, it's still, I would say, a bit easier to drive on the limit here because you just have the car so much more nimble and so much faster. which, you know, when you're driving on the edge, of course, it gets a bit more difficult, but simply because of understanding it, you know, because you have to worry so much less about weight, about, you know, how much the car and, you know, gravity slows you down. I think a Formula car is a little bit easier to wrap its head around in a simulator.
Absolutely. There's Kyle Zarb there, 8th position at the moment. The driver behind there having a little bit of penalty to go and serve down, and that is why that vehicle can always be a handful, especially in open formula. That rear will want to step out when you put the power down a little bit too early, and it's going to be a case of drivers trying to understand how to navigate and ease onto the throttle around this place. Kyokudo now quicker again when it comes to practice times. A 1:12.7 is the only driver to be in that, and in that by nearly a whole second. There is Jaku right now in 2nd position right now here in practice, trying to make as much progress as possible. But you know, we start to look at these laps and go, okay, well, you need a little bit of something here, a little bit of something there. But almost every braking zone around this place here, Nicholas, is a real struggle to get right. Got Remus turn 2/turn 3, where you have to brake up the hill, trying to find what you want, as Kyokudo is completely stationary out on circuit, going for a little bit of a break of some kind. But then you are immediately met with a downhill braking zone at turn 4, which means that your brake markers, even though you'll be at similar top speeds, are going to be completely different.
Well, definitely, and especially since we have push to pass in these cars, you know, when you have a actually push to pass system on this, I don't quite know how powerful they are, but usually it's around 40 to 60, maybe sometimes even 70 horsepower difference that you then get for this push to pass sequence, and of course that amounts to quite a bit of speed difference. And let's say sometimes you forget how fast you're going, try to brake at the same braking marker when you're 10-20 kilometers an hour faster than before, and you just completely overshoot the corner, and hello says the gravel trap.
Simple as that. You can easily run into troubles with push to pass, and it's very much an IndyCar style philosophy of overtaking. There's Mr. Colin finding all of the runoff there, and now finding a little bit of the grass to follow that one too. So it's going to be a really tall order to try and find consistent and some cleanness around this place. I think you can find a little bit as well, really, here, Nicholas, because those off-track points, they are really going to come into play in terms of you cut the course, you get yourself maybe half a second of slowdown to work with, and then you've got to deal with that for the rest of the entire race. And so drivers, I think, yes, there's a lot of places where you can slow down, you can serve those sorts of things, but if you're continually getting, you know, a half a second here, a half a second there, that's really going to be ragging on the back of your mind. You can't stay clean around this place, and this is probably one of the circuits, I would say, where it's a lot easier to pick up those sorts of instant points than others.
Oh, most definitely. The thing is, this is the sort of double-edged sword that the asphalt runoffs give. Because, you know, of course, it's less threatening, and you know that you don't instantly lose the car completely when you go into gravel. But the issue is that, you know, sometimes you gain a bit too much confidence, and there's always this challenge to use the track limits to the utmost limit. And that is just, you know, the point that makes it so easy to just run a bit too wide, get a penalty, and suddenly you're just weighing yourself down more and more and more, and it's just really difficult in a racing situation when you are with, you know, 3, 4, 5 other cars. You are with dirty air, you're with push to pass and all that, all racing at almost 300 kilometers an hour, which is the top speed of these cars, and you just put one tire wrong, you get this penalty, and of course, while it maybe isn't as bad as a spin in the gravel, of course, if it happens twice or maybe more, it's gonna eat away at your concentration, because you of course have this red blinking notification there. Oh yeah, 0.5 seconds, 1.5 seconds, you have to deliver this penalty.
And you've also got to have a little look as well at how the strategy is going to really be affecting everyone around here. Because this is such a stop-start circuit, you're going to be finding that those front tyres are going to get a lot of work put on them. You can see how Jaku here is using all of the road possible just try and get as much grip, driving on the wall of the tyre, and then trying to attack every single section, especially around this place. This is all about feathering the steering inputs. You find really here, Nicholas, as we are just looking at being about 5-ish minutes away now from the start of qualifying. There is 1 second of penalty, and it happens just like that. And of course, the lap goes away just like that. Serve it down, get it back away again. What's going to be key about this, trying to really find out how the lap is going to be formed together and actually how the strategy is going to play, because 20 laps around this place really goes by quick.
Yeah, definitely. And I mentioned earlier, it's in F1, it's only about 1 minute, and I think the record at the moment here is 1 minute 5 seconds by Carlos Sainz this year. Of course, this is going to be quite a bit slower, 1 minute 12, but still, that is just so quick. It's certainly going to be going by faster than the usual races we have, I think, especially than the Spa races that we had. But either way, it's still 4.3 kilometers where you can make plenty of mistakes every single lap, and times 20, that's over 80 kilometers, of course.
And of course, when you've got 80 kilometers worth of racing, there are 80 kilometers worth of distance where mistakes can definitely crop up and make life very interesting. Now, here's something quite interesting from Kyoto there. Only putting in 8% of fuel in the tank, went in and away in the blink of an eye, and I think this is outlap quick and straight in again that we're going to be finding. So we'll see how that strategy is going to play out as drivers look to try and work out how they pit. It is also going to be worth talking about lapped traffic here today. We've got a big range in terms of pace just for the time being. And what I think we're going to be seeing here today is maybe a few troubles here and a few troubles there. So what we could be seeing here is drivers having to negotiate lap traffic, and that could really be a troublemaker for a lot of people up and down. Mika just going to second now in practice, but I think that lap traffic, those drivers who are maybe 14th, 13th, 12th place, they could really be drivers who could be a thorn in a couple of people's sides.
Definitely could be the case, especially if you catch someone on the straights, of course, it's going to be very welcome. If you're in first place, you're defending from someone. And of course, if you see someone else ahead of you there, a lap down, of course, you're thinking if he makes it too difficult, this could be a bit of a pain. But at the same time, when you're in slipstream range, you have another possibility to defend yourself from the attack of the second place guy. But if you catch, a back marker in the middle sector, you're most definitely going to lose time. And I think everyone here knows this, and everyone here is scared of this.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to be seeing here today. Drivers looking to just play calmly around this place and race very cleanly here. This is a tough place to go out there and really work on things, but they do have a good advantage here today, and that is that draft. And we've talked about it a little bit earlier on how crucial it is and how you can gain up to half a second on a qualifying lap. But there is also that great equalizer when it comes to racing and being in the right place to race. We see a whole host of drivers looking to drive down in. Kyle Zarb, Relax, Jaku all in there right now with a couple of minutes to go. How important is it going to be in the race when maybe you're not the quicker driver, but you are quicker in terms of a lap time because you're able to stay with someone in the draft?
It's going to be very difficult, I think. It's simply, getting the lap time together is one thing, racing with that person and, getting it together over the entire race distance is going to be the other thing. Because a single lap time, of course, it's difficult to nail it all together in one lap, but at the same time, a single lap time, a single fast lap time is of course a lot easier to do than, doing maybe slightly slower lap times, but consistently lap after lap after lap. And I think the lap after lap after lap is going to be quite a bit more important here than the single lap time, simply because you have 20 laps of this circuit. And consistency will be key here, especially when you're thinking that the tire wear here, especially because of that middle sector, because of the high speed, is going to be quite important.
Absolutely it is, and this is where we're really going to be seeing it here as drivers look to try and put their final practices in, their final braking markers that they look to try and use with toe, with the push to pass, with everything that's there and available to them. This could be absolutely fantastic to see in terms of racing action. We'll be moving over to qualifying in just one moment's time, but there is so much that can happen around this place, and one of the real big things that I think a lot of drivers are looking at with that qualifying is that in pretty much every scenario that we have seen so far when it has come to this sort of racing, Nicholas, we've seen driver on pole position just wanders off into the distance. Cannot really argue against the fact that the driver who has been the fastest in qualifying in all of these challenges and, of course, the casual races we had earlier on at Spa-Francorchamps, they've all walked away and won the event. So is this, with a different style of vehicle, going to be the first time that we see it be completely different and the form book shaken up?
I think since it's a completely different car, I think Slipstream is also quite a bit more effective here, of course, because the car just has so much more force pushing it down. And when you're in the Slipstream, you have so much less resistance on the car. I think there's a lot, especially for the straights, I think the others are going to have an easier time staying along with the leader. But after practice, the person who's at the moment fastest is Kyokudo, of course, and winner of the grand final and winner of one of the fun races, the casual races. I think there's quite a big number up on top at the moment that the others will have to deal with. And if a similar situation as at Monza last week is going to happen at the start, Kyokudo could walk away with it. But let's cross our fingers that everyone has a clean start. Of course, it's going to be closer as well, because I think today we're having a standing start here as well because of the Formula cars, of course. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting here.
It certainly will. Let's go on board then, hopefully, with Kyokudo for the first lap around here in terms of trying to put a nice banker down in on this one, going through the final corner, now making that push over towards turn number one. They can see the halo above. That's going to be slightly hampering view a little bit, but they'll all be fine. On the brakes, down to third gear, trying to put the power down on the exit. It's so easy just to run wide through that section, but now you start thinking about next place, next scenario, through the small kink left at 2, and now to Ramus here at turn number 3. So vital is this corner as you try and put the power down, minimize all of that traction coming along on the exit, and that's where we're going to be seeing how very, very entertaining this is going to be. Up to 6th gear at 280 kilometers an hour just before really ratcheting down to only 104 as they head to the second half of the sector.
Yes, now coming into turn 4, Rauch, downhill, 4th gear, coming to the end of sector 2 now, and now through turn 5, Wirtkurve. Now into turn 6, the easy right-hander there, just coming over the crest before the last 2 corners here, 5th gear, 260, up to 280 almost again in 5th gear, 210 kilometers an hour. There was Rindt and now Red Bull Mobile, and coming out of the last corner, what time is he going to set in? It looked very clean so far, and it's 1:14.3.
Ooh, a lot of fuel then. That would be something to keep in mind. 15.9 from Mikhail Shalinu with a 15 flat and a 15.8 there coming in for Cladinho there. Jaku goes third on a 15.1, so that's a very interesting look. And look at someone like Rike, for example, 83% of the tank on board as he went out. So I think drivers here in this qualifying session, they will be getting those times dropping down more and more and more the longer that this session goes on, because I think that fuel burn is going to be so vital today, and that's why I think it's going to be maybe what we see in terms of the times and the strategy in qualifying, that staying out longer and getting as many laps as possible in the 15 minutes is going to be the strategy that wins you the one outright, because they say roughly with Formula 1 standards, oh, every kilogram's worth a tenth of a second. Well, clearly here, every kilogram's worth something to a similar value of that, because of the fact that drivers who were doing 112s in practice earlier on are now doing 114s.
Yeah, but I think also it might just be a different strategy for this qualifying here. I think the car is just A little bit easier on the tires maybe while you're pushing on it. That's why a lot of people went with more fuel at the start of the quali. And we had already Rike just head into the pit at the very start of it, so maybe he had a spin or something. But overall, it seems that, you know, the guys can just keep pushing on the limit on these tires just a little bit longer than before on the Group 3 cars. While we have Jaku only 1200s behind Cellino, and right behind him, I think that is, yes, just over 800s to Ivan in 4th place. So the field at the front is quite close together if you remove Kyokudo at the moment from the occasion. And yeah, well, we have to see, you know, who improves how much.
And that's going to be key around this place. Who can find that little bit of improvement? 1:14.295, currently the fastest time available by 7/10 of a second from Kyokudo, who took the grand final of the Spa-Francorchamps Challenge with World Pro Racing here on all of the various channels that we are on at this stage, as every time looks to be a crucial set, and again finds an extra 10th in the bank of 1:14.1, and again Mikhail finding improvement there down the order in 7th place on a 1:15.8. So everybody's starting to just bring it all together. Jaku not finding enough time at the moment, and this is where we're starting to see maybe a little bit of a balancing act coming together. Ivan jumping up now into 3rd position. That tyre life, they've got a lot of it that they can use. They'll be losing a 10th here and a 10th there with it, but how much of that is going to even out with the fuel number?
And that is going to be another interesting thing to see here, how people will actually be tackling it. I actually don't know if they can do the... Yeah, actually, I think they can do the tire stickers completely independently, because otherwise it would have been very interesting to see, because the right tire walls normally indicate option tires, or the softer compound in other words, and I saw Ivan just now with white tire walls, but I think they can do that completely custom for these cars.
Well, that's going to be very, very interesting to keep in mind as they all push on through Kyokudo through the final corner and looking to improve on a 14.1 on the run to the line, and this one remains a 1:14.1 for the time being here. Kenneth finding improvement, Mikhail jumping up into 2nd place, and a little bit of a slowdown there for Cellino, was not going to improve on 3rd at the moment, halfway in qualifying happening very, very swiftly, and they've got to really be careful about pushing that final corner too much around this place, because so very easily you can just click your fingers and it can go away. Rike moves up now into 6th position, just a couple of tenths behind the driver on screen right now. This is Jaku in 4th position, in 5th position right now, hoping to find a little bit more. A second back is not exactly where drivers want to be, and it seems like Jaku is struggling a little bit to extract the timeout, has not improved since his opening lap here in qualifying.
Yeah, and that is just the thing. Just driving on the absolute limit in these cars, of course, you have to really trust the downforce, and of course, you have to be absolutely spot on with the racing line. We saw it so many times now, in the last corner, in the first corner, in the second to last corner. On these tracks, you know, like Spa, like Red Bull Ring, as we see Mikhail going to the pit lane here, you really have to be on the utmost limit of the track limits here. And that here, Cellino, very nice example with the right side tires on the outside curb. And, you know, you just have to nail that down on every single corner for these almost 4.5 kilometers. So it's just really, really difficult to get that perfect lap together for everyone, of course. And, yeah, I'm just wondering how they will fare in the race situation with other cars on track.
Well, that's all to be decided, and of course that happens in about 6 3/4 minutes time, so that's something worth keeping in mind. These times are going to be dropping again and again and again, and everyone's going to be searching for the perfect lap to bring themselves home and dry and as high up the order here for the best possible position for this 20-lap race coming up on the horizon. So times improved. Look at that from Relax Racing, a 14.3, only 0.2 of a second off a pole at the moment, goes to 2nd.
I was gonna say, he was looking kind of mellow in practice, but he seems to have found his rhythm again. But also stepped away from his usual yellow that we've seen on pretty much every other car he had so far. now rocking a red and white livery, sort of looking like a Ferrari there. But of course, the engines here are Honda or Toyota.
They certainly are, as everyone looks to try and think about their strategy. Shalinu, for example, and Jaku both coming in to the pits, getting a fresh set of tyres and maybe a little bit of fuel to go over towards the end. A lot of drivers will be looking at this thinking they can improve their times. Rike at the moment, 1:15.2, finds improvement of time, stays 7th though. Kenneth improving to a 1:20.2, still not quite finding all the time that's needed, but we're on with Kyokudo at the moment, front of the field by now just 0.2 of a second. It was up as high as 0.8 of a second when he originally set that lap time. So the bar's certainly coming down, and that's not helpful. John Varro there in the middle of the line, and that will be a compromised lap there for Kyokudo.
That's definitely not what you want on your fast laps here. And the thing is, I think John is also on, well, a fast lap for him at the moment. And if he doesn't get blue flags, of course, he doesn't have to make way necessarily. So it's just very tricky to get these situations in qualifying, as he runs wide a bit at the end. But
oh, wow.
Despite that, look at that lap time. At the same time, Mikael also improves for another, I think, 4 or 5 tenths from his former lap time. But yeah, you're good at just once again pumping out one of these, really just a 1 in a million laps, even though getting held up a bit by another car, and even though getting a slowdown penalty.
Get my face on camera. I forget everything. Just get my face on camera, because, oh my word, I am jaw-dropped at this. This is amazing. What a time. How do you gain a whole second on your qualifying lap, and still, when you get held up, you go quicker? I'm flabbergasted.
And half a second slowdown as well, so I think actually he could have been beating the 112s almost. If it hadn't been for traffic or the slowdown, it probably would have been a 111.
Wow.
Absolutely crazy.
Just wow. Just wow. And of course, this is still a flying lap. Going to dive down in, get a final set of tyres and go back out and get some more going forward. So gets a bit more fuel. Mikael's still 0.8 of a second behind at the moment, looking to try and improve that time. Does so to a 13.5. That brings the gap down to just 0.4 of a second. 3 minutes left in qualifying at the moment. Pushes wide through turn 1. That could be a slowdown. Shalinu getting better though. Jumps up and halves the gap even more. Jaku moving to 4th place. So Shalinu here up into 2nd. Jaku now to 4th.
Yeah, everyone saw Kyokudo improve, but I don't think they're just gonna lie down and take it. I think they want to back up instantly and, also show that they have the same materials as him. They have some courage as well to trust into this aerodynamic grip. And I'm actually quite excited to see if Relax can maybe improve as well.
Oh, Ivan.
13-1, Ivan! Really taking the fight there now.
Oh, Ivan, what a time, and it's close, but not enough just yet. We're hitting the really strong stages right now. Here's Relax making the push over towards the line. We see Cladinho making improvements to a 14.7. That's not good. Only good enough for 7th at the moment. Relax down there in 6th position at the moment, as we see right now, so that's going to be key. Mikael has time to come in and stop, but look at the gap at the top. 6 thousandths says that Ivan can't quite get there, and Kyokudo's probably got one final run to go on the tyres and get back going again. This is a showdown, as almost everybody is coming in on the 2-minute warning mark to go in, get a stop, and hope they can get back out again.
I will be brutally honest, I didn't expect it to be this close. 6 thousandths of a second, blink and you'll miss it. And then just 1.3 tenths right behind that. Everyone's just quickly fueling back up, everyone wants to head back out, and instantly, of course, wants to put another time in. Rike now 13.5, so it's getting even closer at the top. And the more cars are closer together, and this is going to be a standing start as well. There's not going to be a 1 second gap from, per position. This is going to be all bunched up together into the first corner. This is going to be insane.
It certainly is, and now every time is vital. Everybody out there on track, especially out of the front 6 or so, 4 of whom are on an outlap right now. The other 2 are out there on old tyres and cannot find anything more. They will have to extract that pace, maybe more than anyone else. Kyokudo with the slimmest of margins. You can only have 5 slimmer margins when it comes to this sort of racing. 5,000s, 4,000s, 3,000s, 2,000s, and 1,000th of a second. The only margins that can be better than Kyokudo at the moment. Making the push through the final corner, and now gear it up. This is the final chance for Kyokudo to build a buffer. Shalini will be looking to try and improve, as will Mikhail, as will Jaku, who are 5th and 6th at the moment. Ivan out there on old tyres at the moment, heading through the final sector, and now we'll get one more opportunity as well to try and improve in the purple 46 machine, of course, and everyone knows that sort of styling for a 46, making the push over to the line. That lap doesn't do it, so one more chance, but the tyres will be looking a little bit more spent than they would do otherwise. Shalinu out there on a flyer at the moment as the clock ticking down to 3, to 2, to 1, and time expires. It'll be Kyle Zarb, who's the last one over the line, that we'll keep an eye out on. A 16.1 from there at the moment, and Kenneth improving to an 18.4. But Kyokudo at the moment making progress through the final couple of corners here. The big left that comes up. Rike can't improve, dives down onto pit lane. But now it's all about Kyokudo at the moment, trying to build a margin to Ivan behind. 6,000's currently clear. Shalini will be looking for time as well on the break through the final corner. This has looked quick, and here is Mikhail with a 1:12 flat. What a time! 1:11.9. Kyokudo got it
by seconds.
100th even. Oh my word, Kyokudo! Where did that come from?
I told you it was gonna be at 1:11, but absolutely crazy. Mikhail out of nowhere. What is this qualifying session?
This is crazy. This is utterly crazy. Everyone who's been looking for time has found that time, and it's the top 2 who have put in 2 absolute pearlers, and it is 500ths of a second. It was half a tenth. That was all it was, half a tenth of a second that gets them over the line, and it will be Kyokudo then, with everybody making a push into an automated system right now, who will be on pole position. Mikhail in second, Jaku in the late stages jumping up to 3rd, and Ivan, who was only 6,000ths back, is now 1.2 seconds back in 4th position. That tells you all you need to know. Qualifying ended, my word.
What can you say to that? Honestly, like, the last seconds, point on point on point, and I was honestly not expecting Mikhail to just pull that out of his head there. Absolutely crazy. Half a tenth of a second. So close. And look at the rest of the grid. They're all pretty close together as well. And yeah, everyone's now on the standing start grid. I'm gonna leave the start commentary for you because I need to catch my breath for a second.
Well, this is going to be key. A standing start, 20 laps worth of racing, and that very narrow turn 1, as here they go. And they push off forward with a nice one, immediately one into the wall. That's Mr. Collin, and no, that's not Mr. Collin, that's someone else in the background who's run into troubles. Kyokudo okay, but they're going to start funneling out wide, and that's going to make life a little bit difficult. Almost everyone getting through okay. A bit of bumper side-to-side contact from them, but Kyokudo got the clean start, the good start, and look at this, 3 wide almost there for second, but it is for 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place there in the background. Mikhail serving penalty, but pushing slightly wide. That's Shalini, who's had an absolute shocker from 3rd position on the grid, down already into 9th.
Yeah, it really didn't go to plan by his way, but it all went according to plan for Kyokudo. Despite the qualifying being so close, Mikhail just didn't get the line properly through turn 1, and this is really just the amount of time that you can lose through turn 1. 1 second already, and meanwhile the rest of the field is all close together. Hondison now with his move against Karl Saab, moving up to 7th place. And just look at this entire train here moving through the start of Sector 3, through Word Curve and turn 6, just so close together, and yeah, let's look forward to another 20 laps of this.
Exactly, there we just saw in the background Ilwindi getting through on the Damon Hill-inspired Williams-looking painted car there, getting on through. Relaxo side by side with Rike in the battle for 5th place. This one up the hill into turn 1, always going to be tough, but again, trying to run the outside line. Oh, that's fantastic from Relax. It's It's not often you hold it around the outside at turn 1, but this is going to make things a little difficult. Move to the inside, try and work it out. Which way you going to go? Hondism, bang! Bang, bang, bang! And off goes both Hondism there, and also, I do believe there, Rike as well. It was always going to end up in a bit of disaster as we catch it on the replay. That's a case of too many drivers changing the lanes. That's why you only make one movement.
Yeah, I think that was a bit too late from... I don't know, it was tricky. I think that Rike was already alongside there, and I just think maybe Relax didn't quite see him there. And of course, from behind, we also had the third car, just trying to get alongside there, and chaos. It's just too many things happening at once, just very unfortunate for Rike there.
Yeah, Hondism had the run going through, and it was just that overlap which caused all of the dramas. So now Rike remaining in 6th place for the time being, but now having to hold off the likes of Kyle Zarb and co here at the moment, trying to go on through the corners, and in fact will dive down into the pits with maybe a little bit of issues there. So Kyle Zarb currently now promoted up into 6th place. Cladinho will want to try and find a way through, looking over to the inside, try and get that done, and nope, that one is not going to happen at all. And Cladinho, in fact, making the mistake and is now going to have to try and find a way back onto circuit cleanly again. Rike out of the pits now in 8th place. Front of the field, Kyoto with the lead, Mikhail in 2nd, Jarku in 3rd. The gap 1.8 seconds at the moment for Kyoto, exactly what is wanted here. Windy under pressure though, Rike fresh out of the pits, wanting to make some progress.
Yeah, it's definitely not the kind of start that you want to your race, but he's looking down the back end of this very iconic Williams liveried car from Windy. Looking down the inside here, couldn't make the move down before the corner, but now looking for the outside for Rauch. So this is going to be interesting if he can make it, but he thinks better of it, tries to maybe go for the long run, just tries to stay out of the dirty air. And we just got confirmation that the incident between Rike Relax and Hondism will be checked after the race. So he'll have to wait a little bit if he thinks that he has some justice to get after this race.
Credit to Rike though on that move. That was wonderfully done. Up and under. Mr. Collin pushes wide. Chelinu down the inside. Bit of contact between them, and that's going to allow Hondism the chance to go through. So Mr. Collin dropping back a few positions at this stage as everyone looks to try and find their own little race at the moment here and make sure they keep on pushing forward. Hondism hard over the anti-cut curb there on the outside. Always very difficult. Cladinho trying to get through on Mr. Collin now for 11th place. And, well, Mr. Collin seeing the world go by and going to defend on the inside. Ooh, door was slightly left open there. Collin was late to close. Holds the place for the time being, but runs wide through the exit. And Cladinho struggling to put the power down as the rears light up. Still manages to get the place.
Almost a very similar incident to what we saw a few laps ago with Rike. And I'm pretty sure that, with another Ferrari-themed delivery, Rike just had a bit of a sixth sense tingle there. Just, basically a moment of, oh, here we go again. But luckily not, both kept it out of the wall, and now, oh, that is Windy, very wild though. Chelino has to avoid, and that way Hondism goes by, and Hondism now down the inside. Windy holds against it, but messes up the line a little bit, and now both are through. Hondism now goes a bit wide. I think that was a bit of contact there with Chelino.
That was brave from Chelinu there, trying to go for it, but I think there was contact. We'll catch it on replay. So Hondism sees that Chelinu slows after running wide there, did it Windy. Gets down the inside. That's the perfect pick for Chelinu, who looks for the inside. There was 1, 2, 3 bits of contact there, and just like that, Hondism gets pushed out wide, and Chelinu picks up the place to 8th. So that was a little bit naughty, you'd say there. Didn't have the corner, went in late for it, and now here's a penalty for Jarku in 3rd place, starting to fall back into the clutches of Ivan in 4th. So now Jarku on the podium here, 6 tenths to serve, and it's going to be not ideal. Kyle Zarb, though, falls behind Rike, who's back into 6th.
And Rike is slowly making his way back up after that collision. I think next person up ahead is the man he was in the collision with, so I think he'll be quite eager to get back onto the tail of Relax there. Windy's now falling back a little bit more with Clyde into... Oh, Cladinho just right on his tail, but yeah, Windy gets saved by the gravel there, and Cladinho has to stick it back a little bit. Otherwise, that would have been a very nasty spin.
The gravel giveth and the gravel taketh away, it seems, around this place. So up to Ramus goes Jaku, and look at that on the brakes. That's very cheeky. They're just braking early, finding a good marker, setting some consistent lap times to make sure he's got a good marker, and then taking all of that time off. It has brought the gap down to half a second, though, but the key here is that Ivan not quite close enough down the hill into the next right-hander to really capitalise and make that place. Ivan is forced to stay and wait and watch from this scenario, and this middle sector is a nightmare to follow through. You can see right now, just trying to hold the steering wheel in as much as possible, pushes ever so slightly wider, and there are the two contrasting lines heading through that next left that comes up straight after.
Yeah, I think just through Wirt there, that was really helpful that Jaku was on a bit of a wider line. As we now go back to Hondism and Shelinu, I think Shelinu also just wants to really get past Hondism. He had a very good starting position, and as you said earlier, he lost it all, so a very bad start from him. I'm pretty sure he's basically as desperate to make up for his start as, well, Ivan is to make up for last week, where he had a very, very good start. A bit too good, one may say, because he was sort of the cause of the incident, which then, gave an easy win to Windy.
Here's another chance. Jaku had another half a second to go and slow down, and Ivan here is tucked up underneath here. 0.3 of a second the gap right now. This may have to be a lunge down the hill, which makes life tough, but so good is the braking through that section. You've got to be alongside to have that chance, and again, Ivan is forcing the mistakes out of Jaku here in this one. They're now 7 seconds behind second place on the road, so Ivan here may be feeling, I'm getting slightly held up, but he's doing all the right things here. Just get in behind and get as close as possible to start trying to force mistakes. That's a great run coming out there of the middle sector, and maybe has to go to the outside. Wasn't quite in position to make the move. Line it up for the final corner, and not quite there just yet. But again, they're both pushing wide this time. They both may have penalties to deal with. Half a second for one, 2 seconds for the other. And just like that, by pushing way too hard into the final corner, Jaku is the one who will have to lose out and serve the most.
Yeah, really unlucky for him here, but he's right on the tail again. Now side by side, looking up the hill, but can he make it actually stick? Yeah, the kink is in his favor. Both on the brakes and both delivering that penalty. Luckily, both of them are ghosted, so they can actually do this crossover without any issue whatsoever. But that's not going to be very nice for Ivan, because it's right back where he started last lap, but this time able to look down the inside. Ooh, that's very tight, but they make it without a collision, so very nice there. And there's still some penalty left to be served, but they're not paying attention to it whatsoever. Look at them, they're just merely a couple centimeters apart from each other, but still just so close to each other.
Oh, this is toe-to-toe action as they go through. Slightly wide line from Jaku again, and Ivan gets another good run going through this section, hoping for a run. We're on lap 8 of 20 here with these drivers. They're about to start lap 9, and again, not quite there, but having to put the pressure on through every single corner. That penalty somehow still at 0.6 of a second here for Jaku, who's done a brilliant job of holding on to this one. You can see the time, a 16.8 that last time by. That's how hard they were fighting against each other through that section, and Ivan struggling through turn 1. This is going to give the gap that's very much needed here for Jaku to serve the 0.6 that he very much needs to. Here at the next braking section, you can see on the brakes, serving, gets there. Ivan having to brake a little earlier, change his line, and again, not quite there, able to capitalise. So just like that, click your fingers once it goes well. Now 7th, 8th and 9th, this is key for Kyle Zarb, because there's Shelinu, there is Hondism. Shelinu's going to move over to the inside to make this happen. Hondism's going to start waiting on the outside here. Oh, no room at the end to go through. Hondism looking for the inside. Kyle Zarb somehow serves almost all of the penalties. He's got 0.0 to serve left, but at the time being, may want to try and get back at Shelinu if possible, who is just doing enough on the brakes. Penalty almost served still, but Hondism now getting held up.
Yeah, it's very difficult, of course, when you're in these three-way battles. I think Shelinu, actually, sorry, not Shelinu, Hondism was quite desperate to get on the throttle just there, and oh, he's getting past. So a bit of a mistake from Karl Saab there, I think. But yeah, Hondism had a bit of wheel spin out of turn 2. Of course, it's not going to be good for the tires. But yeah, that's just a little bit of a mistake. Bit carried too wide. That's gravel, and that's going to slow you right down, pal. So yeah, Hondism goes through, says thank you very much, and continues his chase to retake the position from Gelino, while these two are still duking it out.
Absolutely. Oh, there we go. That's your curse there, Mr. Hillebrand, as Ivan finds the wall. Coming out of Ramus corner, getting on the power is so difficult. Up the hill, the wheels want to spin. Round he goes and hard into the right-hand side. Ivan is back up and going again in 5th place behind Relax Racing, but it happens so quickly around here that the back just wants to snap.
I am so sorry, Ivan. Right, on another note, Kyokodo is heading to the pit lane, and I don't think... Oh, well, actually, he's right followed by Mikhail. Quite interesting fact here, they were the entire time 1.8 seconds apart, but Mikhail had the faster lap so far. So, not only is Kyokodo not able to just run away with it, but at the same time, Mikhail can actually keep his pace. So, we haven't seen that before, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's certainly the case, and now this is something really interesting on how much each driver filled up. So it was 19% of the tank remaining coming in, as Ivan, staying out there, remains in 4th position with a couple of things to serve. So Kyokodo came in with 19% of the tank, came out with 85% of the tank. Mikhail came in with 14% of the tank, came out with 89% of the tank. So that tells me something. Mikhail uses more fuel and put more in.
Yeah, most definitely. It seems to be that way. But if it helps him get that bit of an edge out, I don't think that it's going to be harmful to him whatsoever. Maybe it's also a sign of a bit of push-to-pass usage. Maybe Kyokodo used a bit of that in the starting phases, because that's where he really put a lot of time between him and the following pack. And ever since then, Mikhail has been able to keep pace with him. So maybe Kyokodo used some of his push-to-pass before, now trying to save the rest of it for the rest of the race, and Mikhail just maybe hasn't used anything whatsoever, or at least a smaller amount.
Well, here's something really interesting. This is Jarku at the front of the field on old tyres as well. Worth keeping in mind as Ivan dives in, going on to lap 12. So this would be a 2-lap undercut on all of the rivals that Jarku's looking to try and get, but has already lost almost 2 seconds in the last half a lap. There is Ivan in the pits with Hondism as well, who's going to get in and try and serve as much as possible with the fuel and the tyres and get back out and away again. Softs the order of the day. But it's the front of the field where you really have to pay attention, because if Kyokodo starts getting held up by Jarku ever so slightly, life could become a little bit tougher. Look at the gap. It's half a second at this stage, and Jarku's really struggling to put that power down. Kyokodo's going to get a really good run here into the next left-hander, and just like that, that is the difference between tyres, and Jarku had nothing.
Yeah, absolutely nothing to do there. But Kyokodo at the same time really avoided a tough spot there. Of course, he has to stay clear of Mikhail for the rest of the race, and if he had to spend the rest of these corners there, I think that would easily be a second loss there, because Jarku's old tires would really have slowed him down. That's why he's heading to the pits now. And wow, that is right on the spot with only 4% of the fuel tank remaining.
Exactly, and that was the key, trying to run the tank dry and then getting a second lot in. Mikhail is now 3.5 seconds behind Kyokodo at the front of the field, and that's crucial. Lost 2 seconds in the stop. So now here's Ivan making progress for the final corner in the race against Jarku, pushing a little wide as well is not going to help. So now this is going to be half a second of penalty looking to serve, and we'll see how close it's going to be when they come out. Jarku is clear by a good 6 seconds then out on track, so work to be done for Ivan to get anywhere near on all the tyres. There's Relax in 5th place, having a quiet run. There's Karl Saab in 9th place, having a fight with Cladinho over the final 2 spots in the top 10. And that's a whole second for Karl Saab, needing to slow down. And look at this, Cladinho with a chance to the inside, half a second of his own, looking like he's going to have to need to serve. And that is a crossing at the beams into turn 1. Oh, that's a wonderful little bit of an exchange.
And no matter where you look into the field, these cars really do seem to promote very, very close racing. But yeah, we see here the 1 second penalty, and then yeah, Cledini just seems to go, anything you can do, I can do better. I only got half a second. Crosses over, and Kyle, of course, thinking better of it, crosses to the inside and makes the move back.
He's very lucky, actually, keeping that one ahead. Got almost Tony Hawk there on the outside curb, and that wouldn't have been ideal. So Kyle Zarb now remains in 9th, as Gladino is in 10th. There is Kyokudo, and starting to break away, 4.3 seconds, and this is the point where Kyokudo, time and time again, is just absolutely fantastic. At the front, nobody behind, head down, and just focus. That's where it all works out. Mikhail has had penalty to serve in the velocity machine. Fully serves it there, going down through the right of turn number 4. So ultimately, it's a case now of work to be done. There is Jaku in 3rd place, a full 17 seconds back. Most of that due to the fight with Ivan, but crucially, that gap's come down to 5.4 seconds. So Ivan is trying to do everything possible in the last 7 laps to really close that gap down, as well as this 9th and 10th place battle, which has changed back again. Cledinho is through on Kyle Zarb.
Yeah, and it just keeps to be, it seems to be just that constant switching between the two. Unless, of course, Kyle is a bit too far out of the slipstream now, but nevertheless, a little bit of fun battling down the middle of the field. I think also, when we're looking here, perfectly timed, I was going to refer to that now, Ivan there, he's not only catching Jaku, but he's also closely being tailed by Relax, who is, of course, you know, quite desperate to keep up with him, but through these high-speed corners, it's quite difficult to stay so close behind him. Good director, yes indeed, just missed it. Absolutely psychic abilities, to what one of the commentators wants to say. And just as I say, little mistake from Relax, Ivan makes an even bigger mistake, and there we go, that is the penalty that comes according to that cut.
Oh, Relax had a mistake. Back 4 seconds now, all of a sudden with that, so had his own little worry through turn 1. I wonder if we can catch a replay of it, because they were 1 second heading into turn 1, and there's the mistake, pushing wide as well, went Relax Racing. So just like that, all of that time that was going to be closed up by drivers running wide. This is what happens when you follow a driver very, very closely here, Nicholas. You very easily can follow the brake marker of the car in front, and it's almost a case of like lemmings off the cliff. You find out that, oh, I'm off the track as well.
Yeah, and I think you hear that sometimes from race engineers saying that to their drivers, you know, just follow him closely, copy what he does. He's going fast, try to copy him. Oh, not like that though. And and it's just sometimes when you're a bit too focused on what your engineer says, for example. But yeah, either way, I think Ivan is not going to be happy with that 4th place, making a couple of mistakes there because he's trying to push so hard to get back up to the rear of Jaku. But of course, that lost him quite a bit of time now, as he's slowly gaining a little bit back, but it's going to be close at this rate.
It certainly is going to be close towards the end. Cledinho there in 9th place now, really pulling away from Kyle Zarb. Gap 107 to the race leaders, so they're going to be in lapped traffic range here if they are not too careful for this one. There's Jean Varro in 12th place. Did not get well off the start, had a little bit of a moment, so able to keep that one going in 12th, doing a good job of things. But the gap has extended. It's back out to 6 seconds again with all of those mistakes that have happened. I think Jaku here for the podium may just be safe here in this race, with only 4 laps to go next crossing the line. So that might just be a case of all they wrote. But of course, traffic can very easily make life just that little bit more tougher here around this place. There goes wide Mr. Collin, and Jaku comfortably dives on through. But this is a case where everyone now is starting to settle into their own little places here and there, and there are a few drives that we haven't had much chance to talk about here throughout the majority of the race. Mainly 6th position for this one, quietly pottering about on business. Rike there has had a pretty good recovery drive, it has to be said.
Yeah, most definitely. He had a very, very rough time with that accident right at the start. But yeah, he's been silently hacking away. You see the gap coming down right now again. And yeah, I think pace-wise, if that accident hadn't happened, he could be fighting up there for P3, P4 with Jaku and Ivan. But of course, yeah, theoretical pace is the one thing, but also staying out of trouble in these tense racing situations is the other. And now Kyokudo is going to catch up to 10th and 9th place. Actually, no, there is 10th place and a back marker in front of that, 14th.
Yeah, that's
So,
Kenneth.
yeah, that is another situation here. Luckily, he's catching up on one of the easier parts. Actually helping him out a little bit there, because that is a bit of slipstream. He can always need that. Thank you very much, good sir. Goes down the inside, and that's another back marker dealt with, and he carries on with his mission.
Easy job there with the lap traffic. Kyokudo's been in this place many a time before. 7 seconds now clear at the front of the pack, ahead of Mikhail in second place. So this is exactly what is needed. Someone who is probably odds-on favourite come 2021 and the National Maltese Championship to be booking a place to the Nations Cup, to the FIA Nations Trophy that's coming up as well as part of the Motorsport Games. So that could be key here for Kyokudo in terms of the way that this is going to be run, just continuing to show versatility and pace to say, I'm the best that Malta's got to offer. Now, let's be completely honest here about this run that we've seen over the course of racing today here, Nicholas. This hasn't been easy for Kyokudo. Had to do so in the second stage of this race to try and win this one outright. So now you start saying, well, Kyokudo has some strengths, but also I think he's not completely invincible. I think there are elements of his game and certain styles of cars that could close him down.
Well, it definitely seems that in the Formula cars, it's easier to approach him. In the Group 3 cars, he seemed to be a bit more untouchable in his Audi. And now in these Formula cars, we've actually been able to see, well, Mikhail, the best example today, only half a tenth behind him in qualifying. I think that was the closest that we had in the last weeks, just generally close to pole position. And yeah, it's just really, really impressive. But just taking away from single drivers as well, you know, these are casual races. They are open to everyone to just sign up and race at. And, you know, like overall, it's just very, very nice to see such clean track behavior and, you know, so much respect on the track just going on. And, you know, strictly speaking, since this is, by that definition, an open lobby, I don't think that we see that very often.
Last lap then starts for Kyokudo at the front. There is Mikhail in second, having a bit of a helter-skelter moment there as he tries to get past the two bits of lap traffic there. Kyle Zarb will have to be very cautious there on the inside. Oh, that's not going to be very useful for Mikhail, pushing out wider and having to deal with a little bit more issues here and there. Kyle Zarb did not make that easy there for Mikhail going forward, but there's nothing left for Mikhail to really fight with here in this race, hitting the brakes, going through the right and pushing a little bit wide on exit as well. Never quite going to be ideal. This has been a race which has been pretty much won by strategy, won by playing cautious at the start, but really going aggressive in the second half of the race. And it's been when the chips were down, okay, still got a gap to cars behind. It was that moment to kick on. And in the second half of this race, it has been proven once again that one driver stands head and shoulders above the rest of the field. With all of the battling that's been going on that last lap, that gap is knocking on the door of 10 seconds heading towards the final corner. Kyokudo is impervious again and wins the Formula Challenge here at Spielberg.
Once again, very, very good drive from him. But it's not just his outright pace overall. It's really, I think, what sets him apart in these long-run races. I think it's, you know, his overall situational awareness. Because whenever he had Mikhail behind him, I think he made sure to put him right where he wanted it. And this control over his opponents in a race, this is just absolutely incredible. And, well, it's definitely, you know, an advantage that you want to have when you're fighting people who are so close to your pace.
And that's the key, as well as the final few drivers look to push over the line. They're pushing a little bit too hard at the end, and so they're picking up a second or 2 seconds worth of unservable penalty, which will be retrospectively added post-race to this one. There is your race winner, Kyokudo. Absolutely blistering in terms of the way that race was run. 14.5, his fastest lap over the course of the racing action, but absolutely everything was worth it there heading over towards the end. Kyokudo is your winner and absolutely deserved it. Led a brilliant run, led 19 of 20 laps and had fastest lap as well to go alongside that. So absolutely massive was the way that race was run. But there is so much more that will hopefully be coming up. And of course, it's not this week, Nicholas. It's next week that we'll be talking about. Sorry, not next week, but the week after that, when we talk about what is exactly on screen. The Beat Mount Panorama Challenge. And well, I like to say it's one of the greatest street circuits in the world. It's the only street circuit that can truly feel and say it feels like it's an actual racetrack.
Yeah, most definitely. Pretty much Australia's Nordschleife, as I like to call it, because, well, when you drive Bathurst, it is basically putting the entire elevation change of the Nordschleife on pretty much 3 kilometers, which is just about as insane as it sounds. And yeah, I think with these Group 3 cars, we are going to have a quite entertaining race there in 2 weeks. And yeah, I think after this race here, for such a long time, that we had in these 20 laps, that we had close battling through so many people down the grid, I think we deserve this 1 week break to just catch our breath, to go back, to go back to racing in 2 weeks at that insane track.
And of course, the only places you can find that is with World Pro Racing. And you can find all of their socials on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. If you've been watching on there, make sure you like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. For those of you watching on TVM Sport, those of you who have been watching on motorsport.tv, and those of you who have also been watching fantastically on ESTV, we thank you very much for joining us. Of course, there's a few thanks from us, of course, who get it done for all of the events. Of course, the stewards will have a few things to talk about afterwards here with the likes of George Muscat, who is the chief steward, and of course the race director, Adrian Fagayo. They are FIA accredited stewards and part of the Malta Motorsport Federation. Justin and Nathan Mifsud have been on the cameras for this one, directing things absolutely magnificently as always. And of course, Nicholas Hillebrand over there on my left-hand side. Myself, Jake Sperry, and well, Kyokudo has done it again. A big, big victory, and one where he had to just walk away from the rest of the field. It didn't look like plain sailing when qualifying came to an end, but it was a very accomplished drive, and one that proves that Kyokudo is very firmly the driver to beat. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time when we head to the greatest track in Australian sim racing. This event is brought to you by World Pro Racing, the Malta Motorsport Federation, GMR Entertainment, WJ England & Son, Melita, Media Looks, Restream.io, Gaming Malta, VisitMalta.com, and TVM Sport. World Pro Racing, where sim racing becomes real.